Hey everyone, welcome to this explainer. Today we have got a seriously dense day of data to unpack, and it's defined by two massive, entirely opposing forces. On one side, we have intense global friction slamming headfirst into unprecedented technological and scientific progress. I mean, we're seeing major macro-level standoffs on the world stage happening at the exact same time as record-breaking, historic innovations in the tech sector. It's a fascinating contrast, right? And understanding this specific split, knowing exactly where global friction is slowing things down and where tech progress is hitting the gas pedal, is absolutely crucial for navigating today's economic landscape and honestly protecting your own investments and future strategies. The data we have today paints a vivid picture of a world moving in two very different directions all at once.
Here is our roadmap for today. Section 1. Geopolitics and trade friction. Section 2. Markets and business moves. Section 3. The AI acceleration. Section 4. Science, health, and environment. And finally, Section 5. The week ahead.
Let's dive right in with Section 1, Geopolitics and Trade Friction, Global Standoffs.
Okay, so a massive economic shock just hit one of the world's most stable trading partnerships. Following the sudden collapse of trade negotiations right before a Friday deadline, the United States imposed massive 50% tariffs on $20 billion worth of Canadian steel and consumer goods. And the response? It was incredibly swift. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney is literally calling this an economic attack. He has indefinitely suspended trade negotiations and vowed dollar-for-dollar retaliatory tariffs starting September 8th. Now, why does this matter to you? Well, because this isn't just high-level government posturing. When you drop 50% tariffs on consumer goods and core material like steel, that cost almost always gets passed directly down the supply chain. So we are looking at immediate, tangible pressure on everyday prices for consumers on both sides of the border.
And that geopolitical friction is creating serious ripple effects over in the Middle East and Asia too. Iranian President Pezeshkian is publicly claiming that his country has essentially outmaneuvered U.S. pressure. He stated that global opinion has shifted into Tehran's favor as they successfully expand overland oil routes to completely bypass maritime interdictions. So here is how that geopolitical ripple effect actually plays out in real time. U.S. attempts to politically and economically isolate Iran are forcing global allies into some really tough spots. Because South Korea has refused to join the broader Iran conflict, the United States has just scaled back joint military drills with Seoul. It's a prime example of how economic friction in one specific region can completely reshape military reality in another.
All of this feeds into a broader narrative of just intense global volatility and some really contrasting approaches to power. On one hand, you have major diplomatic outreach occurring. President Trump just confirmed that a 2026 summit is officially planned with North Korea's Kim Jong-un, noting positive responses to their early communications. But right alongside that diplomacy, you have active military escalation, with the Israeli military launching strikes into southern Lebanon to counter identified armed threats near their shared border. And stepping back for a second to view the human toll of all this power jockeying, Pope Leo XIV used a recent visit to San Marino to issue a stark moral warning. He spoke out forcefully against authoritarian systems that choose to elevate political dominance and control over basic human dignity.
Moving right along to Section 2, Markets and business moves, financial reactions.
So, with these sudden tariffs and global military shifts, how are investors reacting? Well, with a massive flight to alternative assets. Bitcoin actually ended the week with a 22% gain, pushing it to an incredible $77,000. Gold also surged to a 3-month high of over $4,661. Now, traditional markets did close slightly higher on Friday. The Dow gained 1% and the S&P rose 0.4%. But those massive moves in Bitcoin and gold, they reveal the underlying psychology of the market right now. When trade wars spark up and geopolitical stress mounts, institutional and retail investors alike flee traditional fiat currencies and aggressively seek out safe havens, deeply anticipating more volatility ahead.
But you have to look at the sheer scale of culprit resilience in the face of all that global uncertainty. Microsoft just posted $331.8 billion in revenue alongside $133.7 billion in net income. Guys, this marks their strongest fiscal year in the history of the company. And the catalyst for this isn't just some general growth. It's fueled almost entirely by the massive, sustained boom in artificial intelligence and cloud computing. This is a critical takeaway because it shows that the AI revolution isn't just speculative hype anymore. The checks are cashing. The technology is generating historic, tangible revenue that's practically insulating big tech from these macroeconomic shocks.
Which brings us perfectly to Section 3, the AI acceleration, tech's breakneck pace. As this technology basically morphs into a multi-billion-dollar economic pillar, the industry itself is actually fracturing over how to govern it. The major tech giants are totally divided on policy right now. NVIDIA, Microsoft, and Meta have officially signed a letter opposing restrictions on open-weight AI models. To put that simply, open weight refers to how much of an AI model's underlying code and architecture is freely available for the public and other developers to just download and modify. Meta and Microsoft want fewer restrictions on that sharing. However, Anthropic and OpenAI have notably declined to join them in this stance. We are seeing a profound philosophical divide between the major players regarding safety, regulation, and exactly who gets to control the foundational architecture of our future.
Meanwhile, this entire ecosystem is just maturing at an astonishing rate across every single level of the industry. On the consumer front, OpenAI is officially integrating ChatGPT directly into Apple Messages for Apple Silicon Macs, and crucially, it processes all of that data locally right on your machine. On the talent side of things, NVIDIA is dropping $6 billion on a licensing deal with a startup called Poolside. It's a fascinating new playbook that includes bringing on 109 employees while keeping the startup independent. For developers, Cloudflare just launched Kitesurf, a highly efficient infrastructure tool for AI agents. And looking at the very top of autonomous execution, Claude Code just took the #1 spot for autonomous coding depth in the August rankings. From the text messages on your phone all the way to autonomous code generation, the integration of AI is becoming absolute.
And this overarching theme of technological acceleration, it is brilliantly mirrored over in the entertainment industry. Legacy media is officially passing the torch to tech-driven streaming platforms. For the very first time ever, streaming platforms captured the outright majority of upfront advertising commitments, hitting a record $17.2 billion. Meanwhile, Netflix is launching its largest ever South Indian content push, releasing weekly films straight through the end of the year to capture massive global markets. Disney is adapting to new digital native formats by signing a 20-episode series deal with YouTube giant Darman Studios. And holding down the traditional theater space, Marvel's Spider-Man Brand New Day retained the box office lead with $35 million in its fourth weekend.
All right, Section 4, Science, Health, and Environment, Medical Breakthroughs.
The absolutely crucial point in preventative health today really comes down to one single number, 43%. A massive, long-term Swedish study tracking 376,000 people has conclusively proven that utilizing at-home colorectal screenings cuts mortality risk by an incredible 43%. In a world where we are just constantly focused on multi-billion-dollar high-tech AI, this is a powerful reminder that some of our greatest leaps in public health are coming from simple, accessible, at-home data collection that can drastically alter outcomes on a population scale.
We are also seeing massive technological strides on the treatment side. A personalized Moderna-Merck mRNA cancer vaccine, combined with pembrolizumab, is showing a significant reduction in recurrence rates during trials, which is just an incredible piece of medical innovation. Now, this medical progress is clashing directly with intense institutional debate in Washington. President Trump has nominated White House domestic policy official Dr. Heidi Overton to lead the FDA. Furthermore, the NIH has appointed a neurologist with a documented anti-vaccine history to lead its Child Health Institute. This specific appointment is currently drawing heavy scrutiny from the broader scientific community, creating an intense debate regarding the future direction of foundational health institutions versus established scientific consensus. Meanwhile, back down here on Earth, the data shows we are tracking some extreme environmental danger. Tropical Storm Moke is currently bearing down on Hawaii, bringing up to 15 inches of rain to the Big Island and triggering life-threatening flash flooding and mudslide warnings. Simultaneously, dangerous triple-digit heat continues to aggressively scorch the U.S. South, stretching from Texas all the way to the Florida Panhandle. And if we look up, that friction even extends into space. NASA has officially had to abandon a rescue mission to boost the orbit of a failing space observatory, concluding that the mechanical risks were simply too great. Finally, Section 5, the week ahead, what to watch.
So our timeline for the days ahead highlights a remarkably high-stakes Monday. As the new week starts, global markets are going to reopen and directly react to that massive U.S.-Canada tariff shock we discussed earlier. On top of that, Treasury Secretary Bessent is expected to release the full framework for new Iran sanctions, setting up a real collision course for international markets. We'll also be monitoring the peak, life-threatening impact of Tropical Storm Moke in Hawaii through the weekend. And looking just a bit further into the week, you absolutely must keep an eye on the tech sector. The window for AI giant Anthropic to file its IPO registration documents is officially open, setting the stage for what could be a complete blockbuster moment in the market.
And just wrapping things up with a quick look at the sports world to take into your weekend, Wyndham Clark is currently leading the BMW Championship at 12 under as they head into the final rounds. In the NFL preseason, we saw a 10-game slate where the Jets shut out the Steelers and Bryce Young led the Panthers over the Jags. We also want to take a respectful pause to say a quiet goodbye to former Browns and Texans running back Nick Chubb, who has officially announced his retirement after an incredibly physical career. Over in the WNBA, the Indiana Fever have successfully clinched a playoff spot, and the Little League World Series elimination rounds are keeping the energy high in South Williamsport.
I want to leave you with this final overarching thought to chew on for the week. As we see this massive, historic geopolitical friction, I'm talking 50% cross-border tariffs, fractured alliances, and mounting extreme weather events, as all that collides directly with record-breaking tech booms and staggering AI innovation, which force ultimately wins out? Will our markets, our businesses, and our scientific breakthroughs remain resilient enough to sustain this era of rapid progress, or will the mounting friction eventually slow the entire machine down? It is definitely the single most important question moving forward, and we'll keep tracking the data right here to find out. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer.